What's good with it in the hood with it? Welcome back to the collective clips where you already know. I fucking love that. Y'all love tossing. Who doesn't love tossing? We're about to get it in. But before we get it in, let's get to the intro. Welcome back to the collective clips. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking, right? And I appreciate all your support, man. I'm very humbled by it. So, orale. The Birdman, Al Capone, a gang of cats, old school gangsters, hitters, the worst of the worst, were all sent to one place. No, not Terminal Island. No, not the ADX. No, not even CCOT, but Alcatraz, right? Now, when I heard the other day that Alcatraz could possibly be reopened and turned into a Supermax prison, I was like, gaga, trolling. No way, right? Because those of us that have actually been to Alcatraz as just a tourist, right? Never was in Alcatraz. I'm not Wes Watson. I'm not going to lie to you and say I did time in Alcatraz, right? But I was a tourist, and I did tour Alcatraz a couple different times. And I'll tell you this about Alcatraz. It's deteriorating. It's an old prison, okay? It was one of the most notorious prisons in the United States, probably the most well-known notorious prison in the United States. And it housed probably the who's who of who the fuck they were, inmates at that time. And that prison right there got a lot of history. It's been known to be haunted. There's a lot of wandering spirits. I've seen some shit there, right? Other people have spoken on it. But Alcatraz is deteriorating just like San Quentin. What happens is when you have a prison, especially a prison that's on an island in the middle of the Pacific, to be specific, the Pacific Ocean, right in the Bay Area, there's a lot of salt in that water. Have you ever been to the Bay Area and seen some of the homes that are close to the bay? The paint begins to peel off the walls. You know, the house starts to crumble. And that's because that sea salt, man, is very detrimental to the safety and security of that institution. The walls were not built to sustain, you know, the seawater for years. But that don't mean nothing. Because Donald J. Trump, the president, has decided that if for no other reason, he's looking into reopening Alcatraz. Now, is it a good thing? And of course, if he reopens Alcatraz, if he's able to get the funding for that, if Congress is able to pass some type of legislature to fund that, you know, I think it's actually a good thing. Now, of course, they will tear all the old buildings down and it would be something totally different than what it is. It would no longer be a tourist attraction. There would no longer be, you know, those spirits wandering those halls. That history will be gone and Alcatraz will be new Alcatraz and will be probably the biggest and baddest Supermax in the country. Now, of course, it will be a federal prison because Alcatraz is on government-owned federal land. So it will be a USP just like it was, which is a United States Penitentiary, right? And that's just what it will be. Now, we have a Supermax, which is in Florence, Colorado, the ADX. And, you know, a lot of people here, people are going to ADX and they automatically assume, man, they're going to Florence, Colorado. They're going to that Supermax prison with Chapo and all these different notorious figures, you know, from organizations or whatever. But there's different parts of that prison. There's actually lower levels. You know, there is the ADX, which is like the ultimate shoe. This Alcatraz, what they're building is going to be nothing like ADX. Although it's going to house probably the most notorious figures as well as people that are in limbo, because that's why I think Donald Trump is thinking about opening it. You know, and we're talking about with all the different illegal immigration things going on, you know, and all the people that are basically out there in the streets protesting, saying, you know, you can't just send illegals home. They need their due process. I agree. I agree with the due process thing. I think every single person in America, whether you're legal or illegal, should get some type of due process. That's a fact, right? Once it becomes something in the judicial system, then you have to follow your own laws. You can't go against your laws. You know, the Constitution means something to me. And it should mean something to you because we're protected by it. You can't say, oh, I have the freedom of speech, but then at the same time go against the grain. It doesn't work that way. There's things I agree with and things I disagree with, but that's my freedoms as an American, right? As a Mexican American, I'm gonna do what I do. When Donald Trump first said that he was thinking about reopening Alcatraz, people thought, he's trolling. I myself thought it. Dubs as well. You know, because Donald Trump likes to say things just to ruffle feathers, to get people on their emotions. But then when I seen that he really meant what he said, he's really doubling down on it. I think it's a great idea. It's a fantastic idea. Now, I don't wish incarceration on anyone, but let's be honest here. There are people that fuck up that need to get locked up. If you're murdering innocent people, if you're touching on children, man, if you're a weirdo, if you're pulling up at the supermarket, you know, looking like Wes Watson to meet a 14-year-old, you should go to prison, right? There's certain things. I mean, anything, if you're breaking the law, period, there's got to be repercussions for it. Something as simple as crossing over the border illegally or still in the payday candy bar, there has to be repercussions. That's why the law is the law. And of course, if you're a repeat offender and you've done it and they're going to use your C file against you, right? They're going to use your record. Now, with Alcatraz, because it's so notoriously known, you know, back in the days, like I said, they sent the worst of the worst. It's going to be something different now. It's going to be more ADX and ADXs. I believe he's going to model it if they do get it done, if they do get the funding, which I believe they will. I think they're going to model it after CCOT. It's going to be very intense, a lot of security, and the separation from mainland, man, on an island already right there psychologically fucks you up. Imagine being transferred to Alcatraz. You know, I have a Theo that did prison time his whole life. He passed away a few years ago, right? And he was my mentor. He was the one that put me up on the Norteño game, gave me all my clecha, my schooling, you know, taught me about my culture, just a lot of different things he did, but he was in the spoon. Okay, the spoon got a hold of him, tore his ass up. Then alcohol finished him off. But I'll always love my uncle, and to this day, he's one of the most brilliant minds that I've ever had a chance to sit down and pick, right? Because you know, a lot of people think that brilliance is reading books and brilliance is being able to play every instrument or mathematics and all that. No, but sometimes geniuses come in a tecato form. Sometimes they come in different shapes and sizes. And he was a very brilliant individual in what he was brilliant at. And that was the game, right? But anyways, my uncle, having done all the time that he did, I was thinking about, man, if he was to come back, say he arose from the dead, man. And I told him Chowchilla is a men's prison and Alcatraz is reopened. That about to be like, man, I'm going back. Kill me again. I'm gone. Right. You know what I mean? He wouldn't believe it. It's hard to believe, but that's what this world is coming to. Things have changed. You know, I never thought in a million years the Chowchilla prison for women would be converted into a men's facility, but it is. People adapted and they took a grip and they ran with it. Now we got Alcatraz possibly being reopened. Now it's not going to happen overnight. They would have to tear all the buildings down and rebuild it so that it could sustain that seawater, so that it could be built up to par, so it could be impenetrable, right? Or is that how you say it? Penetratable? If not, I just made up a new word. Impenetrable. I'll say this. If they do build it, it's going to be built for good reason. Now, we have a lot of notorious people in this country that commit heinous crimes. In fact, I actually think that our laws nowadays are just a little bit too lenient. You know, I could sit here and say that because I'm a civilian, right? I'm walking the streets. I'm doing what I do. I see a lot of tragedy, a lot of treachery, a lot of bullshit going on, a lot of crime. And I see people nowadays getting a slap on the wrist, where back in the days in my time, man, I'd have been all up into the penitentiary for that shit. It just is what it is. There needs to be a lot of reform. There needs to be a lot of people going back to the drawing board, figuring out what's going to help the people that are out there functioning in society, being productive. And it ain't the fucking tecato on the corner slamming fent or fucking sniffing or whatever, however they do it. I don't know. It's not that. You know, it's this world is a place, especially on the West Coast. You know, I don't know about other places that I haven't been, but where you can't even take your children outside, man, to play or to do their thing because you got fucking tweakers on every corner and it's dangerous. So Alcatraz to me would be a good thing. It would be a remedy to America's problem. And the problem is this: with all this illegal immigration stuff going on And all these people going back and forth saying these people are not getting their due process and they're being sent illegally to different countries and this and that. This would be a great facility, a Supermax facility to house them in. Now, that doesn't mean every person that's going to be housed there needs to be in the Supermax portion of the prison. But if it is a Supermax prison and that's the only alternative, hey, you could build a little area to process people so that they can get their due process. Now, I'm a firm believer in this. And a lot of people don't agree. And I don't agree with certain things. I don't agree with tearing people's family apart. But when I was a gangster and a gang member, when I was a convicted murderer, when I was convicted of attempted murders, and when I was convicted of everything that I've done in life, no one gave a fuck if my family got tore apart. No one cared because I was doing stupid shit I was tearing my own family apart. Wasn't the law doing it? Wasn't the cops, the judge, the prosecutor, the public defender? Wasn't none of that. It was my actions, my choice. I was tearing my own family up. A lot of us have. There's people out there, Soul Gang, on Gang, North It, all that continue to do that every day. You know, man, I got the heater on me, man. I'm catching the ops. I'm up in the pole. I'm doing all this. Yeah, you're tearing your mom's heart out. You're also doing that. Speak on that. But whatever. I get it. I did the same thing. So who am I to fucking criticize you? These guys, these individuals that did that are doing that, do deserve some vicious repercussions. Those of the illegals that come over, you know, and not just from Mexico, from every country, you know, they violated a law. They violated a law just like if I went to England and overstood a visa or went wherever I went, I would violate their law. You know, if their law says I have to do a year because of that, then I would have to do a year over there because of that. But if their law simply says I'm just to be deported back at first convenience, man, back to my country, then that's what it is. Our laws dictate that if you come over illegally, you're supposed to be sent back home, regardless of why you came or, you know, and I know it seems like people are tearing families apart because there are people that are working, that have changed their lives, that are helping society, that are ingrained, that are just good people, man. And unfortunately, they violated a law. It's not the biggest fucking deal in the world. They're not hurting people or killing people or anything, but it's still a law. And law is law, man. It's just like telling or snitching, man. One snitch is the same as the biggest snitch, right? It's all the same. So when you break a law, man, one little law is just as big as breaking the big laws. Law is law. So my thing is, you're sent to your country immediately, right? Now there's a gang of people nowadays, for whatever reason, hollering and crying and going crazy in the streets, talking about these people need their due process. I agree, man. I agree. Rather than just taking anyone and assuming there's something or someone and throwing them up out of here, let's find out the backstory. What's going on? Let's vet it. You know, are they truly who you think they are? And that's that. And I believe Alcatraz would be the perfect facility to house them during this due process. Now, also, we don't have any Supermax prisons on the West Coast when it comes to the federal system. So, you know, you have like Sheridan out there in Oregon. You have like, I think it's Lompoc. You have Victorville. You have these prisons. Atwater's a max facility, but it's not a Supermax. See, Supermax next level shit. And, you know, psychologically, you get all these guys and you send them to an island. And that right there would kill my fucking spirit right there. Fuck, you're putting me on an island, homie? Away from human contact with, you know, just that mindset, I'm sitting on an island, would fuck my head up, right? But we do need prisons like this that are going to make, it's an alternative that are going to make people think like, fuck, I ain't trying to go to Alcatraz. I heard it's vicious over there. I heard, man, there's a lot of security. And believe me, it's going to be all that plus more. If the American people, the taxpayers, the Congress, everyone agrees and they do decide to rebuild this facility and reopen it and utilize Alcatraz Island as a federal penitentiary, believe me, it's going to be state of the art. It's going to be crazy security because they're not going to put all that money into it and not make it super secure. Now, do I believe it needs to be modeled exactly after CCOT? No, because I don't agree with what some of them guys are going through. I can never wish, look at being incarcerated and being an ex-convict. I know about hardship. I know about struggle. I know about being in the hole, man. I know about the small portions of food, the deprivation, sleep deprivation. You know, there's always sounds, man. I remember I used to get asked all the time, hey, Gun, when you get out, bro, you gonna get you some pussy when you get out? Well, of course, motherfucker, I ain't fucking a Cheeto hole, right? What are you gonna do? What's the first thing you're going to do, right? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay on the ground on some carpet and go to sleep, because it's going to be the first time in a long time I'm experiencing silence. No humming or buzzing from the lights. No smell from that air vent up top. No fucking banging or people bumping baking soda breath out the doors. None of that. It's going to be fucking peaceful sleep for once, hopefully. That was always what I wanted. And then the pussy. Or preferably, or we can even do the pussy in the sleep. We can do it at the same time. Right? Whatever, however we do it. You know, put that fucking thing on it. However, all I know is this. That was what I always wanted. So I know about hardship and struggle. So when I see those guys in CCOP, man, and again, this is a different country, so I know it's different. Everywhere you go is going to be different. Shit, there's some places they just cut your hand off, cut your peep off, and put you in a whorehouse. It's crazy, right? You be on that motherfucker, bow-wows everywhere, drooling, can't do nothing. Let's better step your tongue game up. They'll even cut the tip of your tongue off and just have you sitting there. There's your time. You're going to watch all these fucking rich white men come in here just boning on these chicks. You know what I mean? You're going to be that motherfucker just, it's crazy. There's alternatives. But I don't think that if they do build Alcatraz, they should model like that. In fact, I believe that's unconstitutional in this country, you know, to treat them the way they're treated. But people don't look at it from the other side of the coin, man. How would those guys that are in there doing 600 years for 50 murders treat you and your family? Because they are well deserving, a lot of them, of what they got. It's crazy. You know, I was well deserving every time I went to prison, except for once, man. I don't give a fuck what anyone says, but every time I was well deserving of the time that I was doing, because I was being a foolish person. I was making the wrong decisions. I was making the wrong choice. I knew I was making the wrong choice, but to be cool and to be a part of the gang and a part of the group, I had to make that. That was the right decision for my safety and security at that time, because I had already dedicated myself to a cause. And that was simple, straight up, no hate, real. But a lot of these guys, man, you know, that are in that CCOP prison, they're going through it. Anyways, with Alcatraz, I don't think it should be modeled after that. I think it should be its own thing. I do believe, and I support, you know, what Donald Trump's saying to build that facility. And this is basically his counterpunch to what people are doing, because they're constantly throwing in his face, you and your administration are not allowing due process. You're utilizing old fucking laws and these to get, and you know, and I'm one of those people, I'm not on the fence. I know where I stand, but I see everything. I got ears and fucking eyes for a reason, and a mouth, right? And I'll speak on what I see. And one thing that I do see is, do I agree with everything Trump is doing? No, absolutely not. Do I disagree? Absolutely not. My president's my president. I'm gonna rock the way I rocked the last 4 years with oh boy, right? It's just how it is, you know. But I will say that law, rule of law of land, all that right here, has to be a priority, as long that right along with our fucking lowering our gas prices and shit like that, our economy. And so if he decides, or you know, they decide, because it's not just one man's decision, that they want to rebuild this Alcatraz prison, I'm all for it, man. I'm kind of in awe of what it's going to be like. I'm never trying to go inside of it. I'll see pictures from, you know, the History Channel. That's the way I'll get gamed up. But I definitely want a place where the people that need to get their due process and are deserving of that get it. And the people that should never touch the streets again and need to be secure because they don't know how to act, have a place for them too. And I believe that's what this will be. Not only will it be a lightweight holding facility, but it will also house some of the most dangerous individuals. Because look, I don't wish incarceration or death or none of that upon nobody, but there's some fuckers that shouldn't get out. There's some dudes that every time they hit a yard, they want to kill somebody. There's some dudes that, and they'll sit there and they'll tell you, man, oh, it's because, man, I'm dedicated, I'm a gangster, I'm this and that. Okay, bro. But you're not only killing him. Yeah, he fucked up. He knew what he was doing, but you're killing his kid's spirit. You're killing his wife's spirit. You're killing his family's spirit. There's a lot of killing going on, man. You know, you have to look within yourself and understand, yeah, you're dedicated and you're down. We know that. But when does it stop? When do you stop tearing our people up? Because we're all connected somehow, some way. Anyways, man, what do you guys think? Should they reopen Alcatraz? Is this another gimmick, a ploy, something that's never going to happen? I think it's actually going to happen. When they start speaking about it in certain media outlets that I watch, you know, I'm a local news guy. I like to watch local news, and they're talking about it. I think this might happen, man. And there's going to be a lot of people, no, we need prison reform, less prisons, less prisons. Okay, you better watch out. You know what I'm saying? The same thing to make you laugh and make you cry. No, we don't need a whole lot more prisons, but this is something definitely they're thinking about doing and something I stand behind. With that being said, let me know what you guys think, man. You know, and I ain't on no cop shit. You know, I'm not talking about locking innocent people up, but there has to be a place to house the worst of the worst. And I know you're saying, oh, well, they already got ADX. They're running out of room, homie. They're running out of room. With that being said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in, and that's the betterment of all people. I got a Superwood coming up today. I know I always promise you guys and then I bullshit, right? Because I get sidetracked. No, today. Brother, have your pipes ready and your coffee mugs because it's going down. The gun.